The word ring means track or circuit in several European languages. There's Salzburg Ring and Österreich Ring, where the Austrian Grand Prix is held. Uhlens Ring, not far from my home in Denmark. Ring Knutstorp, Sweden. Norris Ring and Hockenheim Ring in Germany. But for the past 50 years, when all types of race fans worldwide referred to the ring, almost
for Chaparral, IndyCar, and for anybody else. And that's really when it really did take off, because we gave John the very simple to design and build the ultimate Formula One car with no holes. Complete.
Back in those days, Crichton, I can remember a lot of press people bringing out the point that you were sponsored in Formula 2 by Marlboro, and then you ended up in a Marlboro McLaren team. How important was that aspect?
Well, obviously it was important, but it's fair to say, I think, that originally we were intending to get into Formula One anyway and go it alone. I suppose ultimately the amalgamation to form McLaren International with Team McLaren as it then was very much a marriage of convenience for both sides, and it served a very useful purpose. Their strengths were our weaknesses and vice versa. And I think it was beneficial for all sides, and Marlboro too, in the end, that this should come about.
So the very first group were you and Ron and John Bernard, Tyler Alexander and Teddy Mayer, all
That's
working
right.
together.
Absolutely. And I like to think that then and now we do our absolute utmost always to uphold the tradition and the standards that Bruce McLaren himself set when he first formed the company. And we're very conscious of that, and it's nice now to know that we've managed to pull off another championship. And for Bruce, I'm sure he would be happy with it.
I think he'd be very proud of this season. The car itself, the P4, it was quite revolutionary when it first came out with the first carbon fiber chassis.
Yes, it was. Nobody had ever built a Grand Prix car or any race car out of carbon fiber, and there were a lot of people who looked at what we were doing when the car appeared, who thought that we were really out on a limb and probably weren't doing it right. But John Barnard, whose idea it was, of course, was completely convinced right from day one that it was the correct way to go. And all I can say is that events have very much proved him right. If you look around the current Grand Prix paddock, you'll find that almost without exception, the cars are built out of carbon fiber as far as certainly the monocoque's concerned.
How did the TAG turbo motor deal come about?
There was one company that nobody had approached at the time who probably had more experience of producing turbo-powered engines than anybody else in the world, and of course that was Porsche. So we in fact opened discussions with Porsche, and to cut a long story short, they agreed to build us an engine, but obviously as a commercial customer, and then it was up to us to finance it. I'm very happy to say that TAG eventually picked up the whole program, and the TAG Turbo P01 is their first turbo engine, and the association between them and Porsche and ourselves, I think, again, has borne wonderful fruit this year.
The last thing to get together then were the drivers, and again, the best motor, the best chassis, you must have the best drivers. Going back to the press statements in '82 when you took on Niki Lauda, a lot of people think that you were taking quite a risk picking him up straight out of retirement.
For anybody who doesn't know Niki, they might well think that. But when you do know him, you realize that with Niki, almost anything is possible, because as a person, he has such extraordinary strength of will and determination. When he decided to come back, at that point, I think certainly Ron and I knew without any doubt at all that he'd get the job done in the end. As events turned out, he won his third Grand Prix after his return, which by any standards is a quite remarkable result.
But you grabbed Alain Prost like lightning when he became available at the end of last year.
You have to be quick-footed in this game, John, as you well know, and when Alain did become available, it was a question of, as you say, grab him quick. And I'm very happy that we did, because this year, I think that the way that Alain and Niki have worked together is exceptional.
Having two #1 drivers in the team, how much pressure does that put on the whole organization?
Funnily enough, John, I think it puts less pressure ultimately, because pressure is the wrong word. I think it engenders greater enthusiasm and greater effort on everybody's part. But I have to say that having two drivers of the caliber of Niki and Alain together only helps us in every single way.
It's going to be tough to have 10 Grand Prix victories next year. People are trying to catch up to you, and over the winter everyone's going to be even copying your design more.
We're acutely aware of that, John, but all I can say is that we're going to be out there trying harder than ever to stay on top next year.
Alain Prost, driver for McLaren International. You actually started your F1 career with McLaren back in 1980. Was there a big change in the team when you came back to it after 3 years with Renault?
Yes, it's a very big change. I mean, McLaren team in 1980 was completely different than McLaren team in 1984. And it was not the same people, the same organization. It's only the sponsors were the same. But the car was much more competitive with the TAG Porsche engine, and to improve, they did a big improvement about everything in the team. That's why I changed from Renault to McLaren, because I was sure this year were very competitive for me.
The word sure is a rare thing in Formula One. How much confidence does a team add to your track results?
I mean, when you sign for a new team, you're always confident, even if it's a bad team. But I was sure at the beginning of the season the TAG Porsche engine was the best, and I was sure the organization of the McLaren team was the best. So I had no problem.
A winning effort in Formula One is a very difficult thing. What is it about the McLaren organization that's been so superior this year?
Why? I mean, I don't know exactly why, but Ron Dennis' organization is the best in Formula One. I don't know why. He did a very good work, and McLaren team is not a big team. We are only between 60 and 70 people, and everybody knows his work, and it's not like a big manufacturing. And that's why I like to drive in the McLaren team, because everybody knows what he has to do.
The rivalry is a healthy thing between you and Niki Lauda. It's something that makes you both push one another as fast as you can go.
Yes, exactly, and we had a good competition together this year, but I think we were always working for the team. And what is important in the team also, everybody, mechanic or designer, were working for the McLaren team, not for Alain Prost or Niki Lauda. That was very important.
You're going to stay with them next year?
Yes, no problem. That's completely sure.
Maintenance of millions of dollars worth of equipment and the personal safety of McLaren drivers Prost and Lauda are the final responsibility of the men who turn the wrenches. Not one member of Bruce McLaren's original team is with today's World Championship effort. But this current group of mechanics have proven themselves winners all over the world. Chief Mechanic Dave Ryan. Dave, this is a two-car team, but how much competition develops between the separate mechanics of Prost and Lauda?
Yeah, it is a two-car team, but the mechanics they do work on one car. The team comes first, whatever happens, and we've always got situations where one car, maybe something's gone wrong, was that the engine's gone wrong or something, and we'll take guys off say, Alain's car to work on Niki's car, just so long as we get the car finished and running. That's more important than anything else.
And what about the worry of having to prepare every last nut and bolt, some 4,000 or 5,000 of them, effort? That's a great deal of pressure for everyone.
Yeah, I suppose it is, but then again, the guys are all very professional. They're all very good. They wouldn't be working for us, really, if they weren't very good at their job. So apart from the natural worry, I don't think it's a heck of a lot to worry about for them.
What does it mean to you to be the chief mechanic on a world champion Formula One effort, the most successful in history?
Well, naturally, I'm very proud, but then again, so is every other mechanic in the team. It is a team effort. We all have worked, I think, very hard, and everyone's done a good job. So we're all very pleased, and it will be nice in 2 or 3 years' time to be able to say, yeah, we were working for that team at that time. Hopefully we'll still be working for them.
For the past 19 years, beautiful McLaren cars have been winning races all over the world, but the results from 1984 are the best ever. It took the well-managed perfection of 70 employees and more than $10 million of sponsorship investment to secure both the Constructors and Drivers' Championships. To everyone involved, a very well-deserved congratulations. Simon Taylor will return with the all-important qualifying story here at the very cold new Nürburgring right after these short messages. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Grand Prix is significant not just because it's the first Formula One race at the new Nürburgring, but also because as the penultimate round of the 16-race 1984 World Championship, we could today see that championship settled, because Niki Lauda has a 10.5-point lead over Alain Prost, and it's only one of those two McLaren drivers who can end up world champion. If Niki Lauda has a good run here today and Prost doesn't score more points, then Lauda could end up world champion, clinching it here at the circuit where, ironically, back in 1976, he had his near-fatal accident. But after practice, it's neither of the McLarens on pole position. Once again, it's the flying Brazilian, the reigning world champion Nelson Piquet, who takes pole position for Brabham.
Nelson, your 8th qualifying on pole position so far this year. You must be pleased with yesterday's time.
Well, I'm pleased with all the qualifying, but I'm not pleased with all the races being done.
No. What about the times in the wet? There's several people that are, well, like Prost, he's 3.5 seconds faster in the wet. That's going to be a problem if it's raining tomorrow, no?
Well, nobody knows here who's have a fuel, who doesn't have a fuel. Now, it's very difficult to say who's quick, who doesn't quick in the morning now. So you have to wait for tomorrow and see.
Were you running with full tanks then?
Yeah, I was running all the time, full tank.
In the wet, as the load gets lighter in the car, does there even less downforce? Is it harder to drive as the fuel's used up throughout the race?
No, it's opposite. You know, you don't have a G-force. The car is much lighter, have much more acceleration, much easier to brake, and now you go much quicker.
So the second half of the race in the wet is usually faster than the first?
Oh, have to be, yeah. Of course, depending on how much water I have on and how much oil I have in the circuit.
Nelson, you came in the pits with the car a little bit muddy. How did that happen at the end of this last session?
Well, I missed one of the braking points, went in the mud and got stuck there, and I waited for finish. I was missed 3 minutes for the practice, wait finish, and took the car and drove back.
And the new Nürburgring, what do you think of the facility here?
It's a fantastic circuit. It's a pleasure to come and race in a place like this, and I hope only the weather be good for tomorrow.
So good weather for you, is that dry or wet then?
It's dry for sure, for everybody.
Most of the rain came on Saturday, and the second day of qualifying was therefore a complete washout for setting fast times. But it was also raining for part of Friday's qualifying, and you needed to be out on the circuit at just the right time to set a quick one. Alain Prost was lucky. He was out there when the track was almost dry, and he was quicker than everybody else except Nelson Piquet. So Alain Prost, so anxious for World Championship points in this race, will start from the front row of the grid. His rival, Niki Lauda, was less lucky. Third quickest, one of the Renaults. This was Patrick Tambay, who's just re-signed to stay with the Renault team next year, after a lot of rumours that Niki Lauda would switch to Renault for a very big bag of French gold and ease Patrick Tambay out. But the amiable Frenchman, secure in the knowledge that his seat is now organised for next year, set a splendid third fastest, just a fraction slower than Prost. But it hasn't been a great year for Renault, and Patrick, talking to his mechanics after practice, was obviously not happy with the way the car was handling on the new circuit. Perhaps the race will bring better luck for him. Fourth quickest, another ex-world champion, Keke Rosberg, with the Williams Honda. It's been a difficult season for him too, because despite his wonderful win in Dallas, frequently the Honda's reliability has not been of the best. He's over a second slower than Patrick Tambay, but nevertheless, helped by a shower in the middle of Friday's practice, he has gained a second row grid position. Even so, Frank Williams and the team still look worried. The Ferraris are going well here as well. They're both on the third row of the grid, with Michele Alboreto, the Italian, fractionally quicker than his teammate René Arnoux, the Frenchman. Michele Alboreto has been given a tremendous boost by his second place in his home Italian Grand Prix in the last round 4 weeks ago, and he's determined to follow that up with a good performance here at the new Nürburgring. In the dry, he gets the Ferrari around just a quarter of a second slower than Rosberg's Williams Honda. But deciding that it may well be wet in Sunday's race, he spends a lot of Saturday learning the circuit in the wet. And what of Niki Lauda? We'll have his qualifying story and the rest of the practice news from the Nürburgring after these short messages. The murk of Saturday's qualifying here at the Nürburgring come Derek Warwick in the Turbo Renault and René Arnoux in the second of the two Ferraris. He still could finish third in the World Championship, but he admits that 1984 has been a tough year for him.
Yeah, it's true. It's a very difficult season, but I think the biggest problem is the chassis. But now it's late because there's only 2 races to finish the season, and my car is really much better. Anyway, it's necessary to work very hard because I think that for start next year we have a good car, very competitive car.
Do you feel the motor is as strong as the TAG turbos and the other?
Yeah. I don't tell that it's the best engine now in Formula One, but I think it's one of the best engine. And because if you see every time the maximum speed on every track, the McLaren is not very quick. It's one of the best also, but it's very near of the Ferrari. I think we have a big problem of Ferrari is especially the handling, and it's necessary to work on the chassis, suspension, everything like that.
Well, then, in wet conditions like you've had these 2 afternoons here, handling must be very important under those circumstances.
Yeah. Today I am very happy with my car on the weight because it's much better to drive, and I'm happy, I have a good time also, and I think if tomorrow it rain, it's possible to make a good race.
Well, you've qualified 6th. That's a very respectable qualifying position. It'd be nice for you to score some points these last 2 races and in this season on an upswing.
Yeah, for me this race is very important because I have a possibility to finish 3rd on the championship because De Angelis is only 4 points before me. And I want to finish in 3rd after the 2 McLaren because the 2 McLaren this year is too much competitive for the car. And I have this possibility, and I try to finish 3rd in the championship.
So if you finish 3rd in the championship, you actually finish 1st behind the McLarens in a way.
Yeah, and I'm not very happy because I want to finish 3rd. It's normal, but if I finish in this position, I am happy because this year the 2 McLaren cars are very competitive.
And next year again with Ferrari?
Yeah, I stay with Ferrari because I like to work with Ferrari, and this year is very difficult years, but there's always a good ambience in the team, and this is very important. All people understand what is the problem for Ferrari, and we work very hard, and I think that now we are on a good way.
And what of Niki Lauda? After trouble in the dry practice session with both his race car and the spare, he's going to start the race from 15th position on the grid, right back on the 8th row, which isn't going to help his battle with Prost one little bit. But first, what emotion does Niki Lauda feel coming back to the Nürburgring, the scene of his 1976 near-fatal accident?
Well, there are no emotions really. I'm here to fight for a championship, which is the 84 championship. So that's what I'm trying to do. So there are no emotions for or against the Nürburgring. I sure had my accident here, but it doesn't need me to come here to remember it.
I was rereading your book, My Years with Ferrari, and your review of that accident, you say that you can't remember anything after the pit stop all the way to the helicopter to the hospital. Can you recall anything about it whatsoever?
That's the way it is. Unfortunately, I don't remember, so I don't know.
Well, it was a dramatic thing that going into the left-hander, partially wet, just like tomorrow could be. That doesn't raise any fears for tomorrow's start. Or
I'd overcome an accident if I couldn't overcome it in 8 years going. So I will never overcome it. So I've overcome it a long time ago, so there's no problem.
When you look around this excellent facility that they've built, a lot of that had to do with your campaigning for greater safety. What do you think of the new Nürburgring?
The best ever built circuit I know, and it's very safe and good, so that's all you can say about it.
What about challenging as far as the track line?
It's a difficult place to race on, so that's no problem.
You're starting 15th tomorrow in the middle of the field. What happened in the first qualifying session?
My cars had technical problems, so I couldn't run on the first day where it was dry. Therefore, I'm only 15th. Today, everything was perfect. I was quickest, but then the rain came, so I couldn't improve my grid position.
This morning, when it was raining, absolutely the heaviest, you were the fastest of 26 cars. It must give you some confidence for a wet start tomorrow.
Yeah, that's all right, but the problem is the grid position. I'm so far back, if it rains heavily, you don't see anything, so it's going to be a very difficult race for me tomorrow.
So, visually, the fact that a driver cannot really see anything because of the spray, is that the biggest problem in racing in the rain?
That's the biggest problem.
Not the handling. Most people think it's the handling, trying to stop corners.
The handling is difficult, but the visibility is the worst thing.
There's been a lot of commotion in the press over the last 2 weeks about the fact that you were thinking about changing teams, but you have signed a contract for next year. Is that correct?
Yes, I will stay in my team I am in the Marlboro McLaren even for next year. No problem.
And Niki, personally, for you to win your third World Championship title, what would that mean to you as far as a goal that you've always wanted? And
to win another championship is very important, especially today, trying to beat Alain Prost, so to finish this year's season with the best possible chance. So that's what I'm trying to do.
It seems like there's still a great ambiance within the team, though. The competition and the pressure of the championship, you're still working together to do the best job for the team.
Sure, I mean, from the team point of view, there's no problem.
So Lauda in 15th spot on the grid, Prost in 2nd spot on the grid, and everybody's looking for the weather forecast. Will it be wet for tomorrow's race? Will it be dry? Always questions and lots of excitement still to come.
This, and virtually every type of motor racing, depends on a great investment from sponsors. The only American entrant sponsor in Formula One is the Skoal Bandit team. Today we have Joe Taddeo, the managing director of Skoal Bandits in Europe, to talk to us about their team. Joe, Skoal Bandits, your name is on NASCARs and NASCAR stock cars and dirt track cars. And how does Formula One compare to your kart investment and those other types of racing?
Well, I think there's a lot of similarities between our racing, but we look at racing as a great way of gaining attention and awareness for our product, Skoal Bandits. There's a lot of similarities in those races, but there are also a lot of differences, especially when you're talking about Formula One versus NASCAR, for example. NASCAR is very popular in the States, but it's more regionally segmented to the Southeast, as you're aware. Formula One has a much wider and larger audience, but it does the same thing for us. It gets attention and awareness for our product, and we think it's a good investment.
So the Ram team actually carries your racing banner all over the world?
Yes, they do. And, of course, through television, we get coverage all over the world.
Back to the States, you're racing in Detroit and Dallas. You must have been promoting those two events quite heavily.
Oh, very much so, very much so. They're doing basically the same thing in the States with racing as we do here, really taking advantage of the exposure.
As a medium of advertising and sales promotion, do you feel that Formula One is a good investment? It gives you a good return?
We think it does. Obviously, it's an investment in the future of our brand, Skoal Bandits, and we give it a lot of thought before we make the investment, and I think it's paying off.
Well, what about your plans for next year? This is the time of year where all the sponsorships are being under discussion. You might not be able to reveal too much, but will there be a Skoal Bandit racer in Formula One next year?
I think racing is always going to play a place in our marketing mix, and right now, like you said, we're deciding right now what we're going to be doing next year, but I'm pretty confident racing will be part of our marketing mix.
Sunday race day dawns cold, windy, but mercifully dry. And as the 26 cars assemble on the grid, we even get a little bit of autumn German sunshine. At the front, once again, on pole position, the Brazilian Nelson Piquet with the Brabham. 24 points only in the championship so far. He's bound to lose his World Championship title at the end of this year, but he's still one of the very quickest men. And here's a man who could still win the World Championship. He's not going to clinch it today, but he wants points today to stay on terms with Niki Lauda, the little Frenchman Alain Prost, with 5 wins under his belt this year. Tombe, the always charming Frenchman, only 10 points this year after a very difficult season for Renault. They haven't had a lot of luck. On the third row, the faster of the two Ferrari drivers today is Michele Alboreto. He's another man to have beaten the McLarens because he won the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder way back in May. Alongside him, his own teammate, the ever-smiling Frenchman René Arnoux, 24.5 points in the championship. He's 4th, he knows he can't beat the McLarens, but he wants 3rd place in this year's table. As the field goes off on its final warm-up lap, 67 laps of racing ahead of them. Let's quickly run down the rest of the grid. Derek Warwick in the Renault and Nigel Mansell in the Lotus on the 4th row. Riccardo Patrese in the Alfa Romeo, Theo Fabi in the Brabham on the 5th row. Then it's Thierry Boutsen in the Arrows and Ayrton Senna in the Tolman Hart. Eddie Cheever in the Alfa Romeo and Jacques Lafitte in the other Williams Honda. Then Niki Lauda right back in 15th place with the Marlboro McLaren and Marc Surer with the Arrows, Andrea de Cesaris with the Ligier and Gerhard Berger with the ATS, Francois Hainaut's Ligier, Ginzani Zozella, Jonathan Palmer in the Skoal Bandit Ram and Joe Gartner in the Azella. Then it's Elio De Angelis, another man out of luck in practice with the Lotus. He's right down in 23rd position alongside Mauro Baldi's Spirit. And Philippe Alliot in the second of the Skoal Bandit cars with Stefan Johansson right at the back in the Tolman Hart. This could be the race if Niki Lauda can recover from that starting position where he clinches his World Championship, but it's going to be a long 67 laps. We'll be back with the race action after this. Of the European Grand Prix here at the new Nürburgring. The first time the Formula One cars have been here, so we're going to establish a new lap record today. We could even establish a new world champion today. Alain Prost, the second car on the grid there, the red and white McLaren, doesn't want that to happen because he knows he can't clinch the championship today, but Niki Lauda could. Niki Lauda right back on the 8th row of the grid. Nelson Piquet on pole. There's the red light. Here comes the green. It's green, we're away, and Piquet hangs far. Prost makes a superb start. Patrick Tombe is away quickly in the Renault as well, but it's Alain Prost who leads down the hill to the Castrol chicane. It's Tombe on the outside. Piquet is squeezed out. Tombe trying to go ahead of Prost. Oh, and there's trouble for Senna. Ayrton Senna right up the back of Keke Rosberg's car. Several other cars involved spinning to a halt. Others driving across the infield to rejoin the race, but Keke Rosberg very lucky there. Look at the tyre mark right down the side of the car near the cockpit, but he's getting out. He's obviously unhurt. Rosberg's race is over almost before it started, and the leader is Alain Prost from Patrick Tombe. There is Ayrton Senna picking up the debris from his badly damaged Tolman. And another car involved there, I think, was Theo Fabi. There is Fabi coming to a halt in Brabham number 2 as they push Keke Rosberg's car out of the way. And let's look at that first corner accident again. Prost and Tombe side by side. Behind them, Ayrton Senna spins, goes up the back of Keke Rosberg's car. Behind them, also spinning, Marc Surer in the Arrows and Gerhard Berger in the ATS. Several other cars coming to a halt, squeezing through the gap, and Senna is out of the race, his car quite badly damaged. Keke Rosberg also out of the race. Theo Fabi came to a halt, but I think is about to restart. And Prost has an enormous lead already at the end of the first lap from Tombe. Then it's Nelson Piquet in 3rd place, Derek Warwick is 4th, the two Ferraris are 5th and 6th, but Alain Prost is driving like a man possessed and pulling away already. Alboreto, Arnoux, Patrese. There is Niki Lauda, so Niki Lauda is already up into 9th place at the end of the first lap. He started 15th, he's 9th already. If he can progress up the field that fast, then he's going to be able to get on to terms with the leaders. Prost doesn't want that to happen. Prost is trying to make a break, and there is Fabi's car come to a complete halt, but he is restarting. They've given him a tow start behind the Porsche 928 course car, and Teo Fabi in Brabham number 2 is back in the race. Right at the back and right at the front is Alain Prost. There's the second place battle. Patrick Tambay is second for Renault. Nelson Piquet is third for Brabham. Derek Warwick is fourth for Renault. Then Alboreto and Arnoux in Ferraris are 5th and 6th, and Niki Lauda is attacking the 7th place man. Niki Lauda is already attacking Riccardo Patrese in the green Alfa Romeo. He's between the two Alfas of Patrese and Chiva. End of lap 2, and look at that lead that McLaren number 7 has. Second man Patrick Tambay, meanwhile, is under real pressure from Nelson Piquet, Derek Warwick, Michele Alboreto, René Arnoux, and there is Lauda. Lauda is up into 7th place. Niki Lauda has now passed both the Alfa Romeos, as we see Piercarlo Ghinzani, the Azella driver, walking home. Also a shot there of Berger's ATS, another car to retire in the first lap accident. But Niki Lauda is storming up through the field. He's already 7th. He's got the two Ferraris of Arnoux and Alboreto ahead of him. Niki Lauda in 7th place. Alain Prost spins just after having been lapped by the leader, Alain Prost. That could have been quite a nasty moment, but fortunately Prost was already past and through ahead of Palmer. But there's a lot more lapping still to come, a lot more excitement still to come. There's Palmer restarting. Stay with us for more action from the Nürburgring on Auto Racing 84. Still leads the European Grand Prix here at the Nürburgring. Niki Lauda still in 6th place, and the gap has gone up to almost 20 seconds now. Niki Lauda stuck behind the 5th placed Ferrari of Alboreto and the 4th placed Renault of Derek Warwick, and that's really where the battle is. As the leading trio space out, this battle for 4th place is getting closer, and Alboreto is alongside the Renault. Alboreto makes his charge, but Derek Warwick isn't having it. Derek Warwick has the inside line and keeps the door shut. Now Lauda is lunging up behind. Niki Lauda trying to make use of the fact that Alboreto has made an attempt and has failed, and Lauda is alongside. Lauda nearly gets through on that left-hander, and Warwick getting away now as Alboreto struggles to maintain the 5th place. Niki Lauda saw his chance there and nearly got through. But at the end of all that excitement, the status quo prevails because Lauda is still 6th, Alboreto is still 5th, and the British driver of the French Renault has hung on to his 4th place by the skin of his teeth. 3 top Grand Prix drivers driving absolutely as hard as they know how, but Lauda hasn't found the solution to a route past the Ferrari. The McLaren is quick, but it hasn't got enough of an edge over the Ferrari to be able to get through. So Niki Lauda, that most experienced of Grand Prix drivers, the wily old fox of Formula One, has a problem. He doesn't seem to be able to get past the Ferrari on a straight fight. What can he do? Can he use a back marker? Can he manage to put Alboreto in a position where he's got to yield? And he must be thinking about all those sorts of tricks as he follows Michele Alboreto round in 6th place, over the start-finish line, down the hill, and he closes a little bit on Alboreto as they go into the braking area, but not enough. And Alboreto follows Derek Warwick through the curves, on down towards the Dunlop hairpin. The sun now quite low in these drivers' eyes, a lot of them wearing smoked visors to cut down the glare, because it's really sunny here at the Nürburgring now, and all thoughts of rain are completely forgotten. A couple of the slower cars ahead of them now. There is Mauro Baldi's Spirit, the Italian driver who has replaced Hugh Rottengasser now, the Dutchman who has been driving the Spirit recently. And ahead of them, it's Joe Gartner, the Austrian, in the Azella. So 2 of the slower cars to be lapped, and as they go through, that could well change the gap between Warwick and Alboreto, or between Alboreto and Lauda. And I think that's what Lauda must be thinking of working on. Can he use the lapping of the back markers to find a slot to get past the Ferrari? All this time, Alain Prost continues to increase his lead, And there goes Warwick past Baldi. Warwick is past Baldi, but Alboreto isn't, so that has helped Warwick. But now Alboreto goes through on the inside. Lauda's following through. Oh, and Lauda's in trouble! Lauda spins! Lauda spins! He locked up his wheels as he tried to squeeze past Mauro Baldi. The yellow flag's waving. Lauda fishtails off the wet grass, back onto the track. He's still in 6th place. There is Elio De Angelis in 7th. Close to him, and we see it from another angle, and clearly Lauda made a mistake there. Baldi didn't shut the door on him. He was able to go through. He was following Alboreto through, but he left his braking very late, hit the brakes hard, locked up the back wheels, spun to a halt in a cloud of rubber smoke, but at once got back onto the circuit. And this is Lauda 6th, but Elio De Angelis in 7th place in the Lotus is right up with him. Now, if Lauda is in trouble, if Lauda has a braking problem, or indeed if he's worn flats on his tyres with that spin, which obviously used up a lot of rubber, then Michele Alboreto will get well away, and Elio De Angelis indeed may be able to close up on the McLaren. But as I say that, already Lauda has increased the gap back to De Angelis, and I don't think Lauda's going to lose that 6th place. I think Lauda is going to hang on to it, and Elio De Angelis, who incidentally has come up, as you see, to 7th place from that 23rd starting position, a tremendous performance by the Italian, is not going to get past Lauda this time. We reckon that that spin probably cost Niki Lauda a further 14 seconds. That's added to Alain Prost's lead, and Alain Prost looking even more secure in the lead of the European Grand Prix, but Lauda still has plenty of race left to fight back. For more Nürburgring action on Auto Racing 84. The Nürburgring, the drama continues because Jacques Lafitte is bringing the Williams Honda into the pits smoking, and Elio De Angelis, who came storming up the field to 7th place from a 23rd starting position, has parked the Lotus number 11 out on the wet grass. There is Lafitte coming into the pits as the marshals manhandle De Angelis' Lotus out of the way. And there is Patrick Tambay, the 2nd place man, still Alain Prost in the lead, still Patrick Tambay in 2nd place with the Renault. 3rd is still Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, and we've still got this 4th place battle between Derek Warwick's Renault, Michele Alboreto's Ferrari, and Niki Lauda's McLaren. He's still there, back in 6th place. This is 3rd man Piquet in the Brabham, and the gap from Prost to Tambay now 17.7 seconds, so Prost's lead very, very comfortable indeed, and Niki Lauda a long way further back in 6th place. The championship therefore very much alive. There's Jonathan Palmer in the pits. Jonathan Palmer with the Skull Bandit Ram still in the cockpit, but he's having a word with one of the Ram team mechanics. And there is Alain Prost once more, coming through the Roma Curva, on down the long start-finish straight. Back markers ahead of him to be lapped, and his mirror's almost empty. 17 seconds is a long way in Grand Prix racing. That certainly counts as a comfortable lead, and what a wonderful race Alain Prost is driving. And the other Skull Bandit car in the pits, that's Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman. Lots of smoke. In fact, it's pretty hot back there. The mechanics starting back from the heat, having tried to get the rear engine cover off. A crowd collects, off comes the engine cover, and I think that Philippe Alliot gets out of the car. And look at the battle for 2nd place suddenly, because Nelson Piquet is right on Patrick Tambay's tail. Nelson Piquet has come right up to Patrick Tambay and looks set for a challenge for 2nd place. Patrick Tambay, who's been in 2nd place ever since the green light that started this race. But there goes Piquet. Piquet goes through into 2nd place. Patrick Tambay makes no effort to fight him off. And Patrick Tambay's car has been sounding a little bit flat as it passes us here in our position at the start-finish line for the last couple of laps or so. And clearly there was absolutely nothing that Tambay could do about that great lunge from Nelson Piquet in the Brabham. Piquet through into 2nd place and almost at once pulling away, and there is a fastest lap for Niki Lauda. 121 miles an hour plus, for Niki Lauda, so he may still be back in 6th place, but he's driving harder than ever to close this gap. Patrick Tambay slipping back in 3rd place, so it's Renault's 3rd and 4th. You could hear the engine spluttering there. It doesn't sound at all healthy. Derek Warwick's Renault, however, still healthy enough to maintain 4th place ahead of Michele Alboreto's Ferrari, which is 5th, and of course Niki Lauda still in that 6th place. And a word for Nigel Mansell, because although Elio De Angelis has retired, Lotus number 11, Lotus number 12, Mansell was delayed by that lap 1 accident at the first corner, but Mansell also has come storming up just as Elio De Angelis did, and he is now in 7th place behind Niki Lauda. Into the pits comes Tambay. So that misfire, obviously too serious. He's come in, they're going to take the engine cover off. The yellow-coated Renault mechanics go into action. Tambay keeping the engine running, and it's pretty hot in there, but it looks as though they're changing the electronic spark box, which lives just behind Tambay's head, and that's Mansell. Mansell on fire. Nigel Mansell now in 6th place on fire, and the car well and truly burning. He's spun to a halt at the Roma Curva. Yellow flags from the marshals. Mansell getting out of the car, and we see it again. The car clearly on fire after, I would guess, a serious engine blow-up, and Mansell spins the car very rapidly off the track onto the grass, sheets of flame both sides, a very dramatic sight. But Nigel Mansell is safely out of the car. He's helping the marshals with the fire extinguishers. So still the action continues here at the Nürburgring. Stay with us. The closing stages of the European working on Patrick Tambay's Renault here in the pits at the European Grand Prix, but he's underway again, a fresh electronic spark box at the back, but meanwhile he's dropped out of the first 3, and Michele Alboreto has moved ahead. So Michele Alboreto now up to 3rd in the Ferrari. Derek Warwick is 4th, but Niki Lauda is attacking, and Lauda going through. No, he doesn't. I thought Lauda had got that, but Derek Warwick slams the door in Niki Lauda's face. Lauda has to drop back again. So Lauda is still 5th, Derek Warwick still 4th, Michele Alboreto moving away from them in 3rd place in the Ferrari. Nelson Piquet, the new 2nd man, and Alain Prost is still out there in the lead. Niki Lauda charging again, right back up to Derek Warwick once more. Warwick with his mirrors absolutely full of the red and white nose of the McLaren. Into the Roma Curva, and there he goes! Lauda does it, a very tight line out of the Roma Curva, and nothing that Derek Warwick could do about that. Lauda went storming by up the inside. Niki Lauda now is 4th, and that's a lot better than the 6th place he had just a few laps ago, because you get 3 points for 4th. Meanwhile, here is the leader, Alain Prost. He's on the tail of Andrea De Cesaris, the Italian, in the French Ligier, a modified car the Ligier team have produced here at the Nürburgring, but it's certainly not able to hold off the lapping McLaren, which goes storming past down the start-finish straight. Alain Prost now with an enormous lead over the 2nd man, Nelson Piquet, but Piquet putting on the pressure. There's a new fastest lap, 122 miles an hour now, 1 minute 23.146 seconds. And that's Nelson Piquet showing that what he was telling John Visignano in the practice interview much earlier on, the cars go a lot quicker later in the race when their fuel tanks are getting emptier. A lighter fuel load, the car handles better, and of course its power weight ratio is improved. Alain Prost also going quickly, but I think that Nelson Piquet is not close enough to worry him, and Alain Prost's main worry now will not be increasing his lead. His main worry will be preserving the car to the end of the race. In fact, he's let Nelson Piquet get to within 15.5 seconds of him. 4 laps now to go of the 67-lap race. Nelson Piquet 15 seconds behind, and Michele Alboreto is just a couple of seconds behind Piquet. So while Niki Lauda is a whole 43 seconds behind the leader, and René Arnoux, the new 5th place man, is over a minute down on Prost, Michele Alboreto in Ferrari number 27 is closing very fast on Nelson Piquet in 2nd place. Prost reels off the laps in the lead, but a battle now emerging for second place between Nelson Piquet and Michele Alboreto. Niki Lauda, a fairly lonely fourth. And as Prost goes into the Castrol S at the end of the long start-finish straight, look back up to the top of the straight and you see the white Brabham in second place. That's Nelson Piquet, the red Ferrari behind it, which is Michele Alboreto. And that's the Frenchman François Hinault, who has just had his own little private spin at the Roma Curva, rather mud-streaked Ligier going on its way back into the race down the start-finish straight. But Alboreto really closing on the second place Brabham. There they are, Brabham and Ferrari, Piquet and Alboreto in second and third places. Remember that Michele Alboreto had a fine second place in the last Grand Prix. That was the Italian Grand Prix at Monza just 4 weeks ago. And Alboreto certainly on the top of his form. And Piquet, this late in the race, seems to have allowed Alboreto to get much too close for comfort. Niki Lauda still fourth, Alain Prost still leading, McLaren's first and fourth, Brabham second, Ferrari's first and fifth. And the new sixth man now is the Italian Riccardo Patrese in the Alfa Romeo, which has come up into sixth place, benefiting by the disappearance of Nigel Mansell. Mansell's engine blew. We now have confirmation that was the start of the fire, and Mansell was able to spin the car off the track to a halt. We're now in the very closing stages of the European Grand Prix. Alain Prost seems to be en route for a fine victory as he goes through the afternoon sunshine. But what about that battle for second place between Nelson Piquet and Michele Alboreto? And can Niki Lauda improve on fourth place? Stay with us for the closing laps of the European. He's on his penultimate lap, the little Frenchman Alain Prost, who wants to be France's first ever World Motor Racing champion, reeling off the laps in what has been an absolutely exemplary race. He led from the start in this TAG turbo Porsche-powered McLaren, and everything has gone absolutely right for him, including the fact that his own teammate and his nearest protagonist in the World Championship battle, Niki Lauda, the current championship leader in fact, has not had a particularly happy race. Having started from back in 15th place on the grid, he's fought his way up to fourth. He doesn't look like getting any further, and as Alain Prost comes round the Roma Curva to start his final lap, he knows that only one lap remains between him and 9 lovely championship points. But what about the battle for second place? Because we've got the Brabham of Nelson Piquet now holding a very narrow second place from Michele Alboreto, who's driven very, very well indeed. Both the Ferraris still running, of course, because René Arnoux is in 5th place, but it's Alain Prost's day, surely, as Alain Prost goes down the hill towards the Dunlop hairpin for the very last time into the left-hander. There's the Dunlop curve, out of the corner, on up the hill into the bit curver section for the 67th and final time. Very smooth line always, no bouncing off curbs for Alain Prost. He's got Riccardo Patrese's Alfa Romeo ahead of him, but I don't think he'll need to lap it before he gets to the checkered flag. Unlike Niki Lauda, he's had no trouble with all the back markers that he's had to pass during this race. Remember, Niki Lauda had a spin while trying to lap Mauro Baldi's Spirit earlier on. The leader of the race now in the Vidal chicane with the checkered flag and the start-finish line almost in sight. Alain Prost now comes into the Roma curve through the last corner of the race. The checkered flag is waiting, and over the start-finish line goes Alain Prost, both his arms raised in a great salute of victory as he crosses the line, acknowledging now the plaudits of the crowd. 9 championship points for Alain Prost, and that is going to close the gap and take the championship all the way to the final round in Portugal. But here's the battle for second place, and Alboreto has gone through. Michele Alboreto is second, and what's happened to Piquet? Both of them struggling across the line, and I think both of those cars must have been running out of petrol on the final lap. Nelson Piquet driving his car from side to side to try and get the fuel up to the fuel pumps. There is Niki Lauda in the background. Niki Lauda comes through to take 4th place. So 3 championship points for him, but Nelson Piquet out of his car walking up towards Michele Alboreto, both of them giving gestures of astonishment and amusement to each other. Nelson Piquet philosophically acknowledging that he's lost second place as his car started to run out of petrol. He staggered over to take third, and Niki Lauda, with his fourth place, still leads the World Championship, but that championship lead has been reduced. The other Ferrari of René Arnoux has finished fifth. Sixth goes to Riccardo Patrese, but what a magnificent win for Alain Prost, 24 seconds almost ahead of Alboreto, who staggers home in second place. Nelson Piquet is third, Niki Lauda a fine fourth, René Arnoux is fifth for Ferrari, and the sixth man, not on the caption, is the Alfa Romeo driver Riccardo Patrese. Well, no doubt a lot of the large German crowd came here hoping to see Niki Lauda crowned world champion. It's not going to happen, but their misfortune is very much Portugal's good fortune. The World Championship battle is going to go all the way to the final round in Estoril in 2 weeks' time, with now just 4.5 points gap between Niki Lauda and Alain Prost. Which one of them will end up the 1984 Motor Racing World Champion? In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren, of course, have already conclusively won, with more than double the points of Ferrari and Lotus. So it's been a great day for Alain Prost. He's done everything that anybody could have expected him to do, and we'll be back after this short message to have a word with the winner of the European Grand Prix at Nürburgring, Alain Prost.
You've just been victorious in one of your most high-pressure weekends ever in your career.
Yes, for me it was very difficult, but not so much during the race, because it was an easy race for me. I did a good start, and after that the car was absolutely fantastic. I never had a car like that, so the race was easy, but for sure the pressure was very important on my shoulders, and I had to win today. And I think I did a good job. I won the race. Now I go to Estoril, and I hope to win championship. I think I have a very good chance now.
What about this morning with your little off-track excursion? Was that because of all the pressure with the weekend?
No, I made a little mistake. I put the rear wheel on the curb, and the curb was a bit wet, you know, was a bit humid because it was raining during the night, and I spun, but my spun was not a big problem, but safety car was on the road, and I hit the safety car. That was, I was lucky in my problem.
You say you got a fantastic start. I think it was one of your best starts all year long. Just as the light went green, you were gone in front of everyone else.
Yeah, I used to do some good start, but I had to do a good one today because it was very important. Nelson's car is always difficult to pass, and as I had to win the race today. It was very important for me to start well, and that's what I did. I did a perfect race.
Almost a 20 or 30-second lead at some points in the early stages of the race. Were you backing off at all at any stage when you had that much of a lead?
No, I wanted to push a little bit because I've chosen some hard tires, and the Michelin tires today were very good, but I had to push a little bit, otherwise I was picking up the rubber on the ground, and that's why I was pushing a little bit more, and also I was a bit afraid by the shower. So it was better for me to push a little bit, take maybe 30 seconds advantage, and after that wait a little bit. That's what I did.
Was your pit constantly informing you of the race situation as far as Niki? Were you aware of his positions and his troubles during the race?
Yes, not at the beginning, but I mean, I had a difference between a gap between the second and third, but I did not know about Niki at the beginning. After that, I knew he was fourth, and for me it was perfect. I mean, for sure, I would prefer he had stopped, but I take 6 points on Niki today, and it's a good result.
How are you going to spend the next 10 days before you arrive in Estoril for the World Championship again?
Same than before. Maybe I'm going to do some sport a little bit more. I'm going to stay quiet, and maybe I'm going to spend holidays to be in very good shape for Estoril.
Some more golf?
Maybe, but maybe I'm going to be quiet. I don't know, but for sure I'm going to play golf anyway.
Well, there's a great drama that you've put back into this championship for 1984, and all your fans are very happy for you.
Yeah, I think it's very important to finish the championship in the last race. For me, I wanted to go to the last race and with no holidays, you know what I mean. And I did a good, very fantastic season. I did a good season, and I absolutely want to win the championship. And even if I do not win it, I want to go to Estoril with a chance. That's what I did today.
This has been John Bizignano and Simon Taylor. We've enjoyed bringing you this exciting ESPN coverage of the European Grand Prix from the new Nürburgring. Please watch your local listings for more ESPN Auto Racing 84 as we move from the center of Germany to the Atlantic coast at Estoril, Portugal for the final round of this exciting 1984 Formula One World Championship. It's going right down to the wire. Be with us.